Mr. Snyder with the second tutorial for After Effects for animating a static two-dimensional graphic that we created in Photoshop. What you're seeing here in the program window here is the actual graphic as it appeared in Photoshop. Here's all of our layers here that we built in Photoshop. See how the names have been picked up by Photoshop, so everything's named exactly as it is. The order of the layers is exactly as it would be in Photoshop. So let me just quickly review how we got here. I'm going to remember how I said that the compositions, like the sequence in Premiere Pro, if you don't have a composition, you won't have anything in the timeline to edit. So I'm going to just delete that first. Gone. It says, are you sure you want to get rid of this composition? I'm going to say, yeah. See, everything's gone, except for the layers in Photoshop, but I'm going to delete them now. Okay, delete. And what I'm going to do, I've prepared my Photoshop, I've renamed my layers, everything's in the order I want it and need it to be. I'm going to right click, import file. I'm going to find my PSD Photoshop file. It's in your class folder in this case. Under graphics, here we go. Scroll down to Snyder, lower third, Drake. There it is. Okay, and right now it says it's going to import it as footage. Remember that. We'll double click this and we're going to correct that. So up here, make sure it's importing it as a composition and retaining the layer sizes. So the layers are going to be the size they are in Photoshop. Okay, so click on that. And then make sure I'm going to keep on editable layer styles because I may want to get rid of a drop shadow or change it or move it or something. Okay, so I'm going to make them editable, the layer styles, glows, drop shadows. Okay, and click OK. And then as soon as you do, you get again, the composition is this icon here, red and green. It looks like a little film strip. That's like your sequence in Premiere Pro. And then down here in this folder, all your organized layers from Photoshop, and you can click away and you can see them up in preview. Okay, so to get this all started, we double click the composition, and then we're looking at our composition window here, program window in Premiere Pro. They call it the composition window in After Effects, actually. I thought I might be working in CC because some of my colors here have changed of icons, but in fact I am in After Effects. About After Effects, I am in CS6. Okay, which is not a big deal. So here we are. This is where we left off before. We remember we turned everything off, hide all those layers. Okay, I'm looking just at Drake now. I'm going to lock Drake because I don't want to be able to move him by mistake. So now I can't click and drag him around using my selection tool up here. Shortcut letter V. Hey, that sounds familiar. That's exactly what Premiere Pro calls it. And the same, the Move tool in Photoshop. Okay, we're in our composition tab up here. So we're looking at the full composition as we turn things off and on, like so. Okay, remember if I turn on a layer, I can see it. And if I double click it, oh, what happened to everything else? Remember, it's opened up that layer in a separate tab. So now I'm just looking at that white rectangle layer. Let's click that. Okay, and let's go back to composition. Now, let's animate this first shape. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, I always animate from bottom to top because I like to do the things that are sort of underneath of everything else. It makes the most visual sense once you start to build. And then what I also do is I go to the end of the animation so that I make sure this white rectangle, no matter what happens to get here, that it's going to end up in the right spot. So if I make mistakes along the way to get it here, at least it's going to end up in the right spot. Now, what have we got here in the timeline? Okay, so we've got our layers. There's the names. We've got different things we can open up. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, we're going to do basic animation to start. Okay, I want this animation, I want this rectangle to be in this position at the 1 second mark. So I'm going to take my play bar here to the 1 second. Say 01 is 1 second, 0 frames. Again, 30 frames per second. So when it gets to 29 frames, it'll roll over to the next second. Go to 1 second. Okay, and then I need to add what's called a keyframe. I've got to mark this position in time and position on that layer's timeline. So how do I do it? Well, if I go to the white shape here, see this little disclosure triangle? This is the secret to it all. If you click it down, you get a whole bunch of information about that layer. And you get something called transform. Now this is interesting because I can transform or animate this layer I can animate what's called the anchor point, which is this little dot up here. That's going to be important if you're doing rotation and scaling, which we'll get into. I'll leave it alone for now. Let's talk about position. Position is where does it appear on the page? And that works in an X direction and a Y direction. Left to right, up, down, okay? And then scale is making things bigger and smaller. Rotation is if you want to rotate something. And that's where this anchor point will be really important. And then opacity is if you want something to fade. So let me just go to the positioning first. You see this little stopwatch. Right now on this layer, I've got no keyframes. So now I'm on the position. So how did I get there again? You go to the little disclosure triangle, open it up, and I want to go to position now. There's nothing here. You can see the cursor is just like an I-beam. Go to position. Now it makes it a nice yellow mark here saying this is where you're about to add a keyframe. But you cannot add a single keyframe until you turn on this stopwatch. So watch, I'm going to click this stopwatch and it's going to add like a diamond here, which is a keyframe. Watch this. Click it the first time. So you always have to turn on the keyframes. Click it, and there's your diamond. So let me move this out of the way. There you can see it. That's a keyframe. What I've just done is marked this point in time, 1 second, and space as far as where this is going to be. Okay, so I've said at 1 second, this shape will be in this position. Okay, now I'm going to go backwards in time. I want this to take 15 frames. I want it to be pretty brisk. I can always adjust the length or duration it takes to get there. But for this example, let's go to 15 frames now. There we are. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to set a keyframe at this point. What I'm going to do is click on my shape and look. Oh, look at this. It's automatically, as soon as I move it or edit the shape or do something to it, see how it's added a keyframe? But I haven't actually put it in the right position. Watch what happens if I just randomly drop it there. It's put a keyframe. It's going to start here and end where I told it to end. It's going to end here. Start here. Sorry, 15. Let's go to 15 here. 15. Okay, that's a quick way to get there. 15 frames. That's where it's going to start. Now if I hit my space bar to play it, whoop, pretty ugly animation. Okay, take my play bar back and play it again. Whoop. Notice how it played better the second time? That's because the first time it plays, it's actually doing all the mathematics to get it from one place to the next. And then after you run it the first time, it plays better. And I'll get into it. It's called a RAM preview. We'll get into that. Boop. Not what I want. I hate that. I like my end position, which is at, again, 1 second. But I hate the start position. So I'm just going to go and delete that. Don't try to edit it. It's too hard. Just delete it. And it takes you back to where it started. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, because it's a horizontal shape, I'm going to drag it off the screen. I'm not going to take it way off the screen. I'm going to just take it off the screen. But you notice if I drag it, you notice this little line here? It's telling me the angle it's coming in on. That's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is go Command Z, get it back. Let me actually shrink my view here, okay? I'm going to go to like 33%. Now you can see off the screen. So this right here is like zooming in on your program monitor in Premiere Pro. If you're zoomed in too much, like I was, I can't see enough off of the frame to see where my animation starts from. So I'm going to go to about 33%. Okay? Again, I'm at the 15 frame mark. My rectangle is starting right now. Nothing's happened. I'm going to click and drag, and as I drag, just like in Photoshop, hold Shift and it constrains the direction I'm dragging it. I can't go up and down anymore. I can only go left to right. Okay, and I'm just going to take my shape off the screen by holding shift and dragging with the left mouse key. Make sure you let go of the left mouse key first and then let go of shift. Otherwise you could actually bump this by mistake. So you can see the bounding box here of the shape. It's at the 15 frame mark. I'm going to just roll it back a bit, and I'm going to hit spacebar and play it. Again, it might stutter the first time. It's going to start animating at this point. It's going to sit right where it is until it hits here, and then it's going to go from this point to this point. So in here is where the animation happens. Whoop, there you go. Let's play it again. Take it back. Nice and smooth. See how smooth that is? Now I might say, you know what? I think that's a little too fast. So why don't I go to the, I have it right now finishing its animation at the 1 second mark. Why don't I finish it at the 1 second 15 frames? So it's going to take a second and a half now to go from where it starts off the frame to 1.5 seconds. But look, the keyframe's still here. I've got to drag it over. There you go. Now I've just got a longer duration of that animation. It's going to take longer to get from here to here. It starts off the frame here, and then it goes to its final resting place here. It's going to be a slower animation. Okay, it doesn't always play in the actual real time the first time. Do it again. Okay, smoother, right? Maybe even a third time. There you go. Okay, so that's slower. I can say, yeah, I like it, or I don't. So if I don't like it, I'm just going to go to 115. And I can even manually just guess and say, you know what, I'm going to go by feel. I'm going to take it back that far. I don't know where it's at. It's a little longer than 1. It's a little less than 1.5. Okay, so I'll just take it back to 1 for now. So let me set my play bar by time. So 1, 0, 0. So I'm going to take my play bar to the 1 second mark. There we go. And then I'm going to take my keyframe and I'm going to snap it right in the middle, right at that point. So now I'm starting my animation at 0.5 second, 15 frames, starts and goes. Very fast animation. You've just done your first animation. Pretty cool, right? Now, I can also scale something. I'll get into that when we get into other things, but I just wanted to show you some of these things that we're going to be able to do. The principles are all the same. You always need a minimum of 2 keyframes for an animation. You need a start point and an end point. You must have 2. Otherwise, nothing happens. Watch, if I just delete the start point animation and play it, nothing's going to happen because all it's doing is sitting at this point. Command Z. If I delete the end point, it's never going to come in because it's just going to sit there wherever this keyframe's telling it to live. See? It doesn't come in. Command Z. So you always need a minimum of 2 keyframes for any animation. Okay, let's go now. Let's bring that in. So at 1 second, right there, there's the shape. Okay, let's go to the red rectangle. There. Now, how can we bring this in? I'll tell you, it's going to look tacky, but I'll show you a different type of animation. Let's close up the white shape. Let's open up the red rectangle under transform. Transform is position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Okay, why don't I do scale? Again, before you can add any keyframes, you have to turn on whatever it is you want to transform. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say, first, I always go to the time first. I want it to scale up. I'm going to have it scale up at like 20 frames just to make it an even number. 20 frames, okay? So what's going to be happening is this is going to be scaling, start to scale as this is moving. So 2 things are going to happen at once. Watch this. So there's my 20 frames. Now, I didn't do my, that's where I want it to start. I want it to be in by 1 second. I'll have it come in slightly there. I'll have it come in at 1 second and 5 frames. So always start at the end of your animation, okay? So I want this at 1 second, 5 frames. So just a little after this animation to be finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my end animation keyframe first. Red rectangle, I'm going to scale it this time, turn it on. There it is, 1 second 5 frames. Now I said I was going to start it at 20 frames, so I'm just going to type in 20. There you go. And at 20 frames, which is where I am now, I actually, forget the white one, let's turn it off. You'll find that if you turn off the other shapes and work with one at a time, it's much easier to understand. Okay, I'm going to scale this. Now right now the scale is 100%. This is the actual size from Photoshop. So what I can do is they're linked together, horizontal and vertical. I'm just going to type in a value of 0. Oh, it looks like it's gone. It's there. It's just ready to animate. Okay, so at the 20 frame mark, it's off the screen. It's shrunk. Okay, it's scaled down. There's a little point right there you can see. And then at the, the 1 second 5 frames is when it'll be its full size. So let's watch that animation first. So what it should do is just scale up. Whoop, there you go. Okay, and it does what I wanted it to do. It's now scaling instead of sliding on the x-axis left to right. Now, whoa, let's go crazy now. Why don't we, oops, I didn't want to see that. Why don't we turn on the white layer? So now you got to sort of really pay attention. So turn on, let's just bring up the red rectangle so I'm not seeing the transform anymore. Okay, just hide them. And then let's turn on the white rectangle. The white rectangle has not started to come on yet, neither has the red. So what's going to happen, this is going to come on first and then this is going to grow. Watch this. See? And the red one, to me, ends too late for my liking. Okay, so watch. See, it's kind of like two different things happening. So what I'm going to do is go back to the red rectangle, go back to the scale. I think I should take the scale and have it actually finish earlier, not later. If I drag this over, watch, I'm really exaggerating how late it will grow. See? Bad animation. Doesn't look natural. It just, I notice it growing. The whole point of a good animation is things happen visually smoothly. So I'm going to do this manually. I'm going to just drag it. And I'm going to take it to, I don't know, somewhere in here. Let's see. There's, at 1 second is where the white ends. So I'm going to have this end a couple of frames before the white rectangle. So the red is going to be finished growing before the white stops. But the white goes behind the red, so we may not see everything happen. See, but they look like it happens together, right? So it's not like the white's finished and then the red finishes. It's all one big, look at that. Beautiful. Grow, there we go. Okay? You say, you know what? I don't really like bringing the red rectangle in this way. You know, it's kind of okay, but you know what? I'm going to click and select those two scale keyframes. Delete. I'm going to go to the 27 frame mark for the red now. Okay. And instead of scaling it, I'm going to fade it on. And for fade, I'm going to use opacity. I'm going to, again, at the end point of my animation, 27 frames, turn it on. There's the end of my red rectangle fading on. And I'm going to have it fade on quickly. So 27, I'm going to go to, it's going to be a 7 frame fade on, very fast. I'm going to start the fade at 20 frames and end it at 27. So what am I going to do? Look, right now the opacity by default is 100%, means I can see it. Click it, enter 0 as a value. Now it's invisible. It's faded out. Now let me go and play it. So at the 20 frame mark, it's going to start to fade on. It's only going to take 7 frames to get there. Very fast, fade on. Okay, now see how it was kind of jittery there the first time we play it? Let's play it again. Nice, right? I think it's fading on too soon though. See, to me, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to select both of these and I'm just going to move them together to the right a bit. I'm going to delay a little bit when the red rectangle is going to fade on. Okay, and then play it the second time. And I'm not sure I'm loving it, but it's doing what I told it to do. I think I need to slow it down a bit, so I'm going to deselect the 2. I'm going to select the 1. I'm going to stretch it out a bit. I'm going to just move these manually. I'm kind of guessing right now. That's okay. I go by feel sometimes. Doesn't feel right. Seems like it's fading on way too early now. Let's see. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep playing with it until I think it feels right. Okay, play it a second time. It's coming on just a bit too early. I'm going to drag it a couple frames to the right when it starts. Okay, play it a second time. Pretty good. I'll live with that. So that's now an opacity transition instead of a scale or a position. Okay, now let's look at the next layer then. Okay, so the next layer is the flag, and I'm going to have to select. If I've selected the red layer, it's the red layer that's outlined with the bounding box. You see that? If I select the white layer, that's what gets the bounding box, even in the composition window. Flag, you select the layer. Make sure you're on the right layer. I always select the layer, just like Photoshop. Select the flag. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it up. Okay, so that's what kind of a transition would that be? So go to my transforms. I'm going to use a position keyframe for it. I'm going to have it come up after the red, okay, right in here somewhere. As the white is still moving and the red's there, I'm going to start bringing the flag up at that point. At about 115, I want to be ended. So for a temporary sort of timing purpose, I'm going to turn on my position keyframe on the flag. At that point, 1 second, 15 frames, that's the end of the animation. That's where the flag will be when it gets there. I'm going to have this come up from 1 second. Actually, I'll have it come in from 110. So click. You don't actually have to. Okay, 110. I'm at 110. What do I want to do? I want to just go down with it now. So again, if I grab it, look, it's going to go wacky on me. You see that? That's for a Bezier curve, actually. But see those that marker there in the middle? I want to make sure it goes straight down. So hold Shift, it'll go straight down. I want to take the flag right out of the frame. Don't keep it partially in the frame like so. Or if I bring it up even more, if I grab this and I bring it up more, and if it's not out of the frame all the way, you'll see it at the start of the animation. So if everything else is turned off, that's how it will start. You don't want that. So you got to make sure you start out of frame. Click, hold the flag, bring it down. The bounding box is off the frame. The flag is going to come on pretty quickly. Okay, let me actually, I've got both keyframes selected right now. Select the end one. I'm going to just drag it out a bit. Slow down the flag coming up. Let's see how it looks and how it feels. Okay, so now what I'm going to see is the white, this white rectangle is going to slide across. The red is going to grow here, scale up, and this flag is going to move up, straight up from its position here. And let's see how they all work together, because a successful animation, it shouldn't look like 3 different things moving. It should look like they're all developing and growing at the same time as one graphic, not as 3 different elements. So let's see how this looks. Terrible, right? The flag is coming in way too late and way too slow. So I'm going to take the flag position and I'm going to have them come in quite a bit earlier. And I'm actually even going to make that faster. So I'm reducing the distance here between the 2 keyframes. That's less time, less duration, and that flag will now come in faster and earlier. So let's see how it looks now. My gut says, what's your gut say? Oh, it's coming in fast now. I say it's coming in too fast, but too late. So I'm going to spread the distance a bit, but I'm going to select both keyframes, and I'm going to move them to the left so it comes in a bit earlier, but slower. Let's see how that looks. That's not real time. Got to come in earlier. Drag it left. Might be coming in too slow. Coming in a bit slow. I'm going to start it a bit earlier, but I'm going to bring it in faster. Okay, So I've started the flag moving up sooner, and I've made it come in a little faster by reducing that space. Okay, and play it again. Ooh, things are starting to come together. You notice how these are ending and this is kind of ending? So all three are kind of ending at the same time. Even though there's three separate animations, it's starting to look like one. What I'm not loving right now is this point here, okay? Where the white comes on. I think I've got to move my red rectangle to be finished a little sooner so I don't see all that white underneath of it as it fades in. But that's a personal preference. Like that, okay? It just bothers me. So why don't I fix it? Let's go to the red rectangle. Okay, and what kind of a transform did we do? We did an opacity. Remember that? There they are. I want the on the red rectangle, we did actually scale. Where's the scale on the red rectangle? That's how we brought it on. Maybe that's the problem. Somehow it's changed to opacity. I might have edited something in the. I did. I edited something the wrong way. You probably saw it. You're going, sir. So let's take this play bar to this keyframe. Now here's an easy way to get to a keyframe. You see this little keyframe navigator here? There's got an arrow left, arrow right, or you can set a keyframe. Left means I'm going to go to the left, to the closest keyframe. So watch. Gets me there fast. Bam, there I am. So that's where I want the scale to start. I don't know, I did something wrong. That's okay. You're going to make 1,000 mistakes. Click on scale. I want it to scale. I want it to be 100% at that point. I want it fully in. Let's just use this keyframe now, the start point of the scale. So I'm going to go to my navigator again. Click, gets me to that exact point in time, and I just have to go scale 0. Look at that. Okay, I don't see it anymore. I'm not sure. I must have been on the red rectangle when I thought I was on the flag. Some of you may have seen that. That's okay. Select the two opacities for the flag and delete them. So that's why I didn't like it, because it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. Let's play this now. Oops. Okay, why am I not seeing the shape? Red rectangle, why do I not see you? And I'm going to have to work this out. Not sure. Some of you are seeing why I'm not seeing it. I'm not. It's not obvious to me right now. So, what was I doing wrong? And I'm sure some of you are yelling at your screen, sir. Okay, let me navigate to this last keyframe. Yeah, it's scaled at 100, but I don't see it. Go back to the first one. It's scaled at 0, so I shouldn't see it. What's wrong? Oh, when I changed my opacity settings and got rid of those keyframes, it went to 0, so it's invisible. Just add the 100% in. There it is back. Now navigate on my scale. Back. For those of you that were yelling at your screen, good for you for noticing that. I wasn't looking down here. I was looking here and at the flag. So these are kinds of things you're going to have to figure out when you do make mistakes like I just did. And that's okay. I expect you to make a ton of mistakes. That's where the learning really happens. It's like understanding, okay, what did I do and how do I get out of it? What I would always do is if I get totally messed up in something is I would just select all the keyframes, delete them, and start the animation from scratch again. Okay, let me just hide the transformation options on the red rectangle. Let me go back and let's see what we've got now. Oh, the white shape is turned off. See that? It's hidden. Okay. Don't like the flag. It's happening a little late and a little slow. So I'm going to open up the flag. It's doing a position transform, a Y position. It's happening a little too late, so I'm going to deselect my keyframes. Select the beginning point of the transformation and move it a couple frames each time. See how it's jumping? That's 1 frame. So I'm going to start it like 3 frames earlier, and I'm going to make it quite a bit faster. Let's see how this works. Again, I'm looking for this animation to look like it's all one graphic. I'm not seeing things build. Okay, there's the white stripe. Oh, there's the red rectangle. Oh, here comes the flag. That's not a successful animation. visually the whole graphic should flow, and people should be thinking they're looking at just one thing, like it's one graphic in their mind. Okay, flag's coming in too early. It's distracting, see? So I'm going to take that, select both, move to the right, and let's see how that works now. That's better. Okay, and then I would get the timing right on everything. So the red is finishing too late. So I'd say, okay, I'm happy with the flag. Let's go back to the red rectangle. Okay, and let's just have it end a bit earlier. So I'm going to take the ending keyframe of the scale and move it a couple frames to the right. I'm actually going to move the start point a couple frames to the right, to the left as well. So now I'm going to start this rectangle a little sooner. And it kind of ends now with the white shape, so watch this. Right, so these two are kind of working together visually. And you notice I'm not seeing through it anymore because I'm not on opacity, I'm on scale. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys and girls figure out how do you want to animate these other things, these texts, how do you want them to come onto the screen. Okay, this Drake right now should not be where it is. I'm not sure why it is, but what I can do is I can move it down. Oops, that's the flag. Go to the Drake layer, make sure you're on the right layer, always the right layer first. So I've made some mistakes along the way, and that's okay. So I'm going to reposition that where I think it was in the Photoshop. Okay, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to nudge it. I'm on flag, see, because I'm clicking on the flag, not on the word. That's what's happening. So just click on the layer here. I'm going to use my arrow key left to nudge it 2 pixels to the left to try to center it. And I'm going to say that's where I want it. Now what I have to do is turn on the separator here. Oops, right there. Oh, it's way too low. So I've messed that up. So let me get it up here. Okay, let's see. It's too big is the problem. So I'm going to go and go to the text. Hey, look at this. I can go to my text tool. Can I edit this text? No. But watch what you can do. On the Drake word, I can't edit this text even if I'm in the text tool. I'm going to actually be adding new text. I don't want to do that. So what I have to do if I want to edit text from Photoshop is I have to right click on the text and I have to make it editable text. Convert to editable text. Okay. Click that, and now if I'm in my text tool, I can click on Drake, go to Drake, I can click on Drake, and now Drake is highlighted, and now I can change the scale of Drake. So I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to go over to the right, and right now my text is at 91 under character, 91 pixels. Let's make it 85 pixels. Okay, and now I have in the character panel changed the size of the text by making it editable. Okay, and then click off the layer. It's still way too big. Double click Drake. I'm going to make it, click in here, make it 70. Okay, 70 pixels. That's a better size. Now I'm going to go to my move tool or my selection tool and I'm going to put it in place. Something here is moved. I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. Okay, this is not as good as the original. Something's moved, but it looks okay for what we're doing. So again, if I want to edit views, if I spelled views wrong, it's not too late. I can go into the text layer, right click it. Oop, I'm in the layer now. Remember that? Go to the composition, right click on views, convert to editable text. Turn it on. Now I can edit that. You see that? Using the text tool. Okay, so that's one of the techniques. So that's basic animation. Now what I do want to show you is, let me just go to the white shape. Okay, I'm going to turn off everything else. I just want to show you some things here. Under white shape, there's the transforms, the different options. I can move it left, right, up, down. That's position. Left, right, x-axis, up, down, y-axis. Scale, small, big. Okay, I can rotate things. I'm going to show you the trick to that in a second. And opacity is simply fading it on or fading it off. 0 means you don't see it at the start. 100 means you see it. So if you want to fade it on, you start at 0. go to 100, and then if you want to fade it off, you put a third keyframe in at 0. Let's do that. Let's fade it off. So where's our white shape? It's going to look awful. We don't care. After it's done, moving in, okay, I'm going to set at 1 second 15 frames, I'm going to set my opacity to be at 100. So I'm going to see it. Okay, so I'm going to set that opacity keyframe. Now look, I've got now opacity keyframe and a position keyframe on the same shape layer. Okay, so you can do multiple different kinds of transformations on one object. So now I'm going to have it full up at 1 second 15 frames. I'm going to go back to 1 second 100, enter it, and I'm going to put my opacity to 0. There it is. So after it slides on, it disappears. It'll just cut out, and then it'll come on in half a second. So let's just look at that first, the fade up, or sorry, the cutout. Oops, let me go to, now see how it's not starting in view? What I'll have to do is just move this 0 keyframe over 1 and set another keyframe at this point here. Okay, so I can now click this little dot here. I've added another keyframe right beside it. I got to make that 100%. I'll tell you why. See if you follow this. So it starts so I can see it. I'll see the whole animation, right? There it is. I see it. Up to that keyframe. Okay, so up to this keyframe, you're going to see it at 100%. When it hits this one at 0, well, let's move it over a bit. It's going to start to fade. Let's put it in between. So it's in, fades out, fades back in. And then I'm going to put another one where it fades out. So let's put a fourth one in, somewhere down here. Another keyframe. How do you add a keyframe? You put your play bar always on the correct layer, on the correct transformation you're looking at, and you put it in the right time, and then you're going to use the keyframe navigator here, the little middle button, click it, it adds a fourth keyframe. Look at that. What's my opacity? I want it to fade out again, so 0. So what I've got, now watch, I'm at 0, so you can't see it. I'm going to use my keyframe navigator, left. Look at that, it's at 100% at this keyframe, so it's 100, 0. That's going to fade out at this point. Okay, navigate left again. Look, it's at 0, and we know this is 100, so it's going to go from 0 to 100 to 0. And the key is, go left again, navigate, gets you right to that keyframe. It's going to start at 100%, go to 0%, see the opacity, go to 100%, go to 0%. So this is going to fade, it's going to fade out, fade up, fade out. Fade out, fade up, fade out after it moves onto the frame. Fade out, fade up, fade out. See that? It finishes the animation first, right there. That's when the fade out begins. And then it starts to fade up again right away and fade out again right away. Watch. Fade out, fade up, fade out. Very fast. Let's move them all over. So select all three, move them all over. Select the next two, move them over. We're going to slow down the fades and select the last one. And I'm just doing it by eye now. I'm not doing it by times. Excuse me. Slides in, fades out, fades up, fades out. See that? Play it again. It'll play more smoothly the second time. Fade out, fade up, fade out. It's still very fast. So I would still move everything. Move everything. So you can edit these keyframes easily just by dragging either in groups or individually. Let's play that. Fade out, fade up, fade out, fade up. Okay, or fade out. Now, play it again. It'll play smoother. Slide out, in, out. Okay, so that's the essence of keyframing and how you do it. There is more to come, but that's the basics. You always need a minimum of 2 keyframes for any animation, a start point and an end point. Okay, now let me show you this red shape. Okay, I'm going to turn off the white. I'm going to go to the red shape, turn it on. I'm going to go down here somewhere. And I want this red shape. I'm going to double click it. Okay. And see how this anchor point's right in the middle of the composition? I'm going to go back to composition. And yeah, it's in the middle here. So I'm okay. When I rotate this, so again, open it up. There's my transforms. Hey, a real quick way to get to these is like this. What are they? Anchor point is A. Position is P. Scale is S. Rotation is R. And opacity is T for opacity. Okay, so what do I mean? Watch. I want to do a rotation. I just have to select the layer and hit R. It brings up the rotation transformation very quickly. Turn it on. Okay, and at this point, now rotation is a bit funny. The first number represents the number of 360-degree rotations. And then the second number is partial rotations, the number of degrees. So if I type in 1 here in the first number, okay, and I go back in time and I type in 0, okay, adds a keyframe at 0, so it starts at 0 where it normally would, and then by the time it hits here, it's going to, let's navigate over, it's going to rotate once. So let's see if it does it. Boop, it did. Notice how it's rotating around this anchor point. This is critical, the anchor point, and I'll get to that in the next tutorial. But that'll certainly finish off very, very long tutorial, but you now know how to do a lot of things. I'd like you to work on completing how you're going to bring in these other layers. Okay, use your own imagination. Oh, I've got an empty layer here. You know what I should do? That's where I was making mistakes. Delete them. Highlight them. Delete them. That's where I was trying to enable the text. If you do need to actually edit the text by changing the letters, you have to go to editable, right click on Drake. It's already an editable text. If I go to another word like the, hasn't been converted yet, convert it to editable text, and I can change it to us if I wanted to. Not that I would. Okay, so editable text. So you've learned a lot in this first very long tutorial, but trust me, once you start to master these basic concepts and understand the basics of transformation, what your options are, you'll be off the races and using your keyframe navigator to jump exactly to the next keyframe each time. Down here in opacity, it's jumping to the opacity keyframes. Up here in position, I've got position keyframes. I want to jump to those ones, not the opacity. I use the position navigator. See that? Very, very useful. Make sure you use it. Saves you a ton of time. Okay, that's about it. That pretty much summarizes everything here. Have fun with it and make your graphic move.